Hey there. Gonna talk to you guys about matrix multiplication today. Essential question being, when can you multiply matrices? So just kind of like with matrix addition, there was a kind of a rule about when you're allowed to do matrix addition or subtraction. There is a rule for when you can do matrix multiplication, and unfortunately, it's a different rule than when you can do matrix addition or subtraction. In this time that we're in, it's got me, thinking about how we don't really appreciate what we have until it's gone. And I think toilet paper is a great example of that. It's kind of funny. Yesterday, Nola had 2 cans of alphabet soup at lunch, and then she had 2 cans of alphabet soup at dinner. And today, she had the biggest vowel movement I've ever seen. While we're on that line of reasoning, taught Nola a new joke. What did one fly say to the other fly? Is this stool taken? Poo jokes aren't my favorite, but they're a strong number 2 on my list. All right, and back to math. So the rule for matrix multiplication has to do with the number of rows and the number of columns. And so just like Mrs. Harris talked to you about, how do you look at the size of a matrix, and so it has to do with how many rows there are. So this matrix here would have 2 rows, and then it would have, so that being the number of rows here, and then it would have 3 columns. So this would be a 2 by 3 matrix. And then another example of something like that would be, so something with 3 rows and then just 1 column. So it has 3 rows. So that's 3. And it only has 1 column. So that's a 3 by 1. So these 2 matrices can be multiplied. And how we know if they can be multiplied is that when you look at them, like if this was called matrix A, and if this was called matrix B, sometimes we see it something like this, A times B. What we're looking at is those sizes, so those dimensions. So this is a 2 by 3, and this one was 3 by 1. And so in order for there to be multiplication, what we need to see is that these 2 inside numbers have to be the same. And so it helps, like when you write them in order like this, A times B, and so we see it's a 2 times 3, 2 by 3 times a 3 times 1, and those 2 inside numbers. So the number of columns in matrix A has to be the same as the number of rows in matrix B. So the last number in the first matrix has to be the same as the first number in the second matrix. And so what's up with those other 2 numbers? Well, what these 2 numbers tell us is the size of the answer. So A times B would give us a 2 by 1. So it would have 2 rows and 1 column. So the answer would be that big. So the first thing we check when we can do, if we can do multiplication by matrices, is do the number of rows, the number of columns in the first matrix equal the number of rows in the second matrix. And so it's interesting. So if I flip that around, say, hey, what's B times A? Because we know that in normal math, like 3 times 4 is the same thing as 4 times 3, and we can do both of those. Well, what if I flip it around? What if I say, what's B times A? Matrix B times matrix A. And so I look at, okay, well, matrix A is still 2 by 3, and matrix B is still a 3 by 1. And so when I look at those inside numbers, those are not the same size. That means that we can't do this. This would be an error or not doable. So it's kind of interesting that A times B is doable, but B times A is not doable. So it's a little weird. You got to watch out for that. But every time we look at one of the first problems, we'll see if can we do it first, and then we'll go ahead and try to do it if we can. I'm going to show you guys how to do this all on the calculator. Normally, if we were doing this normal lessons that we would show you how to do this by hand. It's kind of a tricky process. The other thing about all this is that with matrix multiplication, even if both of them are both orders are doable, say if A times B was doable and B times A was also doable, they don't generally equal each other. And so in most cases, matrix A times matrix B does not equal matrix B times matrix A. There are certainly cases where that happens, but it's definitely on the rarer side. It's more often that A times B does not equal B times A. So sometimes you can do one and you can't do the other way, or even if you can do them both, oftentimes the answers do not equal each other. So just something to know. So. All right, so we're going to look at this first problem. So IXL is going to kind of show you this way. We're going to say fill in the missing numbers. So it's kind of showing with their, they're giving us one matrix, and then another matrix, and just kind of implying that since they're next to each other, that they're being multiplied. But kind of way you want to think about this is, this could be your matrix A, and this could be your matrix B. And say, well, how big is matrix A? How big is matrix B? And so if we look at matrix A, it has 1, 2, 3 rows, and then 1, 2, 3 columns. So matrix A is a 3 by 3. And then matrix B has 1, 2, 3 rows, and 1, 2, 2 columns. So this is a 3 by 2. So can we do this? So we want to look at those inside numbers and say, okay, they're both 3. Yes, we can do this. And then the second one tells us how big is the answer going to be. So our answer is going to be a 3 by 2. And you see that when you go to the, with the problems, most of the time, the earlier problems are going to go ahead and have the answer matrix set up for you. And they'll say, okay, here's 1, 2, 3 rows with 1, 2 columns. So you can see that they've given you a 3 by 2 matrix there to fill in the answers. Okay, so we go to enter the matrix into the calculator, we need to hit second, and then the x to the -1 button over here where it says in the blue matrix above it. And the first thing you do when you want to enter a matrix is you have to go to edit, but what we see here right on this first screen is just the names of a bunch of different matrices. These are the ones that you get to edit and create. So go over to the edit menu, and you just get to pick whichever one you want to edit. And so I'm just going to pick A, and so I'm going to enter the first matrix into A, and that matrix had 3 rows and 3 columns, so it is a 3 by 3 matrix. And so that is the first thing you have to tell the calculators how big of a matrix you're going to write, and then it kind of displays it for you, and it does the 3 by 3 pretty well on the screen. If you do anything wider, like more columns than a 3, then it gets harder to see, but it does 3 by 3s pretty well. And so that one, its first row was 1, so I'm hitting 1 and then 0, so I'm just hitting the enter key to move to the next element, and then the next row is 0, 1, 0, so enter, and then 1, enter, and enter, and then the third row was 0, 0, 1, so enter, enter, so I need to change that. And so once you have the matrix inputted, you need to quit out of this. You can't do anything else while you're in this part of the calculator. So I had to hit second, and then the mode up here where it's quit, and then go back to enter the other matrix. So second matrix. And then we need to edit a different matrix, so input now. So I'm going to input for matrix B, so 2. And that one had 3 rows and 2 columns, so it's a 3 by 2. And the first row was 3, 0, so 3, and then 2, -2, so 2, -2, and then 2, 0, 2. And so then I have to quit out of here, so second mode. So the next thing I'll do is multiply those 2 matrices. So I'm going to hit second matrix. I want to take matrix A, so 1. And then there it is, and I hit times, and then I go second matrix 2. So we get matrix B, and there it says, what we want to do, A times B. And so there we get our answer matrix. So 3, 0, 2, negative 2, 2, 0 is the answer matrix, and you just fill in those blanks into the IXL sheet. I want to show you how that sometimes matrix B times matrix A doesn't equal A times B. So just that idea that matrix multiplication is not symmetrical. So if I hit second matrix, so 2, so for matrix B times second matrix, and then try to do matrix 1. Sometimes it doesn't even work, and so here, it says dimension mismatch, and so that's telling us that this multiplication isn't even possible, let alone, equal to A times B. So I'm just, since I don't need to go to the error, I'm just going to go ahead and quit on that. And now that we've gone through and done the math with the calculator, what we would do next is just type in the two answers that aren't given already, so they'd be the 2 and the 2 here, and hit enter, and we'd be all done. On to the next example. So if this were my matrix C, and this were my matrix D, so we can see that C has 1, 2, 3 rows with 1 column, so as a 3 by 1. We can see that matrix D has 1 row with 1, 2, 3 columns, so as a 1 by 3. And so you can see in those inside numbers, yes, they're both 1s. And then we look at the outside numbers. So that's a 3 by 3 will be how big our answer is. And again, you can see from the what IXL's already given for you. There's 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows with 1, 2, 3 columns. And we'll go ahead and type that into the calculator and get our rest of our answer filled in. First matrix has 3 rows and 1 column, so I'm going to hit second matrix, and then I'll just go ahead and edit matrix C here, or I could go and overwrite 1 or 2, so here be. But I had 3 rows and 1 column, and that was 1, 2, 2. So 1, 2, 2. And I quit out of there, so second quit, and then second matrix, and I'll go ahead and edit matrix D, so 4. And that one had 1 row and 3 columns, so it's a 1 by 3. Oops. I'm going to hit the times button there. 1 by 3, and that was 3, 3, 1. So 3. And then I quit out of there. And then I want to take matrix C times matrix D. And there we get our answer matrix. So we got a 3 by 3 matrix. 3, 3, 1, 6, 6, 2, 6, 6, 2. And I will type that into the missing IXL blanks. All right, so now we've got, from the calculator, we see that the first row was 3, 3, 1, the second row was 6, 6, 2, and the last row is also 6, 6, 2. So filling those in and hitting enter. We're all done with that one. Move on to the next example. All right, so we have matrix C and matrix D. So this could be matrix E, this could be matrix F. Let's go and check their sizes. So I have 1, 2, 3 rows with 1, 2 columns. So I'd say 3 by 2. Then F has 1, 2 rows with 1, 2 columns. So I had 2 by 2. Look at those inside numbers. They're both 2, so check, this is doable. Look at those outside numbers, and our answer will be a 3 by 2, which we can see from what they've given us, that we have 1, 2, 3 columns, 1, 2, or sorry, 3 rows and 2 columns. And so here we can see that they want us to put in all the answers, which really isn't a big deal. Go ahead and type that into the calculator. Okay, so our first matrix, so I'm going to hit second matrix, and I'll go ahead and edit matrix 5. So E, that has 3 rows and 2 columns, 3 and 2. That was 1 0, 3 0, 1 0. So then quit, and then you go back to matrix and edit matrix F, which had 2 rows and 2 columns, so 2 by 2. That was 1 0 0 1. So 1 0 0 1. Oops, 1. There we go. Second quit, and then second matrix. So I want matrix E or matrix 5 times matrix F, second matrix, which was 6. Enter. And there it gives us our answer matrix 1 0 3 0 1 0. All right, so now we got our answer from the calculator. We saw that the first row was 1 0, second row was 3 0, last row was 1 0. We'll hit enter on that and move on to the next example. All right, so here's the next kind of way they're categorizing the problems. So they say, here's matrix G, here's matrix H, what's GH? So implying, G times H. And then here, if the matrix exists, select its size before entering your answer. So we're going to have to pick one of these buttons here to say how big the answer should be. So we've been talking about that. And then if we can't do the math, then we'll select undefined. So let's look at matrix G. We see that it has 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows with 1, 2, 3 columns. That's G is a 3 by 3. And then matrix H in this case is 1 row, 2 rows, and then 1, 2 columns. So matrix H is a 2 by 2. And so looking those inside numbers, that is not doable since those are not both 3 or not both 2. And so in this case, I would hit undefined and then move on. So that problem is not doable. All right, last problem. So same thing, we're going to figure out how big our answer is, and then we'll move on to typing it in if we can do it. So I'm looking at matrix T. So it has 1 row and 2 columns. So that is a 1 by 2. And matrix U has 2 rows with 3 columns. So that is a 2 by 3. So looking at those inside numbers, 2 and 2, yes, can doable. Outside numbers, so our answer matrix will be a 1 by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and select this button here, and then go ahead and type that in the calculator, see what the answer will actually be. All right, so what I'm going to do now is show you how to delete those matrices out of your memory that you have. It's a little tricky, so we're going to hit second mem, which is down here on the plus button. And then what we can do is hit number 2 where it says memory management delete. And then you see number 5 is the matrix. So it can delete matrix. All I have to do is hit delete, 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 delete. And just wipes out all those matrices that we already had typed in there. If we had a bunch of that we had typed in and we want to clear them out, there's the fastest way to do that. So I hit second mem, and then 2, and then 5, and then I just hit delete until all those are cleared out. Then you go back to click quit out of that, hit second matrix, and then you notice that all of those have been wiped out. And so now this last problem we have is a 1 by 2, so I'm going to go and hit, oops, I didn't want to do that. Hit second matrix, edit number 1, and that was a 1 by 2. And that was 3, negative 4. And then second quit, second matrix, and then I'm going to edit number 2. And that one was a 2 by 3. And that was negative 2, negative 3, negative 2. And then 2, 7, 7, 2. Enter. And second quit. And then second matrix 1 times second matrix 2. Enter. And there is our answer matrix, which is a 1 by 3. So we'll hit that button on the IXL first, and then we'll type in those answers: -14, -37, -34. All right, so now that we've got our answer, we hit that 1 by 3 button. The IXL should pop us up something like this, with 3 boxes in it since it's a 1 by 3. And we're just going to go ahead and fill in our numbers, which were -14, -37, and -34. And we'll hit enter there. All right, that's it for the examples. What you need to do for this assignment is get a score of at least 80 on section G6 on Excel. Hopefully it's pretty easy. A lot of typing and input on the calculator, but really not a lot of hard work to do. But do make sure you check to see if the problem's doable before you go and try to enter it on the calculator, because you would waste time on that. So you might need a little piece of scrap paper to do that, just to help you out, make things a little bit easier, just to write stuff down so you can see it. So until you get good enough to talk your way through it. All right, I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys later.